Good afternoon and welcome to today's webcast. Private equity firms use Domo for data-driven insights. Before we begin, I'm going to play a brief housekeeping video.
Welcome, and thanks for joining us. We're pleased to present another in our ongoing series of continuing professional education webcasts to help companies and individuals conquer challenges as they plan for what's next. Our presentation will start in a few moments. Before we begin, here are a few things to keep in mind. You can customize how you both view our presentation and interact with the presenter. For better viewing, close all other applications and turn up your speaker volume. You can also adjust window size and placement or enter full screen mode using the controls at the top of the window or dragging the bottom right-hand corner to resize. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see a series of icons, each relating to a different aspect of our session. You can download the group attendance sheet and a PDF copy of today's slides from the slide deck and handouts widget to the right of the slide view. You can ask our presenter questions during the webcast by typing a question in the Q&A window below the slide view and clicking Submit. We'll do our best to answer all questions during the presentation or follow up via email. If you experience technical difficulty during today's presentation, refresh your browser by hitting the F5 key.
I'm pleased to introduce today's presenters from Moss Adams, Casey Fike, Senior Manager, and Loren, Managing Director. Casey has worked in consultancy and data analytics since 2004. With his data and advanced analytics experience, he has led companies in developing analytics strategies, utilizing data to achieve business objectives, implementing business model changes that reduce costs, developing continuous auditing processes, and architecting data warehouses. Loren is a firm leader of business intelligence and corporate performance management. He helps businesses improve their processes to become more efficient and make better decisions. And with that, Casey, I will turn it over to you to get us started.
Great. Thanks, Emily. And again, thanks everybody for taking the time today. For this webcast, we want to chat about kind of the issues that private equity firms are encountering, trying to become a data-driven organization. How our clients are using Domo to drive business value and bring efficiency to the reporting processes. And then just ways organizations, private equity firms, can increase their agility and reduce costs through the Domo solution. So, jumping into kind of the issues that firms encounter. I think the big thing here, and this probably isn't going to be a surprise to anybody, but private equity is a very spreadsheet-driven organization. And when I say, spreadsheets kind of are the lifeblood, if you will. But the challenges that come with spreadsheets are you're spending a lot of time going to source systems, different businesses within your portco, pulling out data, trying to pull it all together, really spending a lot of time on manual repetitive tasks, whereas a solution that's automated that can pull those data from sources automatically, tie that data together, you're spending more time analyzing that information. And again, spreadsheets will still be there. Domo provides that capability to export to Excel or CSV. But the first thing here is spend less time on those low-value manual tasks. And that was kind of the piece I was speaking about, where it's pulling the data together, making sense of it, tying it, rolling it up into a reportable format. The second piece is, the numbers have to be right within this industry. Key business decisions are made on that. The more hands-on data sources and data exports increases the likelihood of maybe a fat finger or manual error. Again, an automated solution where we're setting it up once, that is being able to pull that data, manipulate it as you see fit, and then get it into kind of a format that's able to be reported upon. And then the last piece that we'll kind of cover throughout is have all that information in a single data warehouse, right? Have a single source of truth. Everybody that's having a discussion related to the numbers is talking about the same set of numbers. And there's not different areas that are having their view of the data which might not include everything. The data source might not be accurate. That roll-up might not be accurate. Again, keep everybody focused on the same set of numbers to kind of have that meaningful discussion. As I mentioned earlier, spreadsheets are the lifeblood of private equity firms. But again, it's these things that we're running into and that we're seeing, and from discussing with our private equity leadership group here at Moss Adams, what are those challenges that firms encounter trying to become more data driven, trying to increase their reporting time, being more up to date on transactions as they occur within their businesses, within their portfolios. And it's really just, it gets back to spreadsheets, and we're doing everything in spreadsheets. If there's a way we could do some sort of automated roll-up, which we'll cover later in the presentation, that brings just greater efficiency. And to this first bullet, it'll reduce those manual errors that you might encounter as you're rolling up data, pulling data from different sources. It brings me right to the second point there, where we're pulling data, then normalizing from different sources. We might have a telecommunications company, and we might have a beauty care products company within our portco, two very different sets of a chart of accounts. If we had some way to kind of automatically pull up data from there and then roll that up into an automated reporting mechanism, that cuts down on that time, reduce the risks of errors within your reporting process. And again, it brings more just speed and efficiency to the reporting process, right? And that kind of leads into the last point, where we're spending all this time manually pulling data, whereas we should be spending more time analyzing and taking action on that data, which really ties the slide nicely together, where automation and analytics, it has significant value. And I think a lot of firms that we've spoken with want that. It's just the challenge of how do we do that where we have very different businesses, and we need to roll up that reporting data into a comprehensive all-in-one solution. So, Loren, I'll pass it over to you, but I guess kind of challenges you see from organizations trying to start analytics.
Yeah. And so, thank you, Casey. And what you mentioned there, just around working with spreadsheets and the timing that goes with that is really important. And so what we have here is, some of the challenges that we see as, companies begin to look at using data analytics. And just taking a step back, as we talk to clients and, a variety of different businesses and, PE firms, there's a lot of interest in data out there and having data analytics. But it's sometimes a little surprising on how little is actually built out in that. And there's a few reasons for that we kind of we'll get to here. And some of it is just a mindset of how you approach this. Like, for example, this first bullet here, difficulty of building the business case. When you can look at, you have the spreadsheets and it's giving you information. You can put that, if it was only just the same information, but put into a different platform, where's the business case for that? And it really comes down to this piece that Casey was talking about earlier in the automation of it, and it's timing. So if you wait till, a period is done and then you bring in the information into spreadsheets and you report on that and you see what happened, then, you can, see where things are going. However, you're outside of the decision-making window, meaning that period is done, cannot change the results. Put that same scenario into a data analytics tool set where you're getting near real-time data coming in. Having managers, business leaders engage with that data during the period it's really life-changing, because what it does is it gives the information you need to make a decision before the period's done, and it only takes a few good decisions to then see a return and pay for these kind of solutions. So it's a little bit about how the business case is built when you're coming to this end. A huge piece of that is timing, getting the information so you can make the decision within the decision-making window, because once period ends, that closes, as you know. The second bullet here says, the cost is out of reach. And there's a couple of things that drive that. Part of it is if you are, needing to Lego together, if you will, a lot of different components of the solution. Each one of them may seem cost effective, but when you get the whole thing together and you get the total cost of ownership, the cost can climb. What we're seeing now in the data industry is there are tools that are comprehensive. And Domo is one of those. Kind of why we wanted to talk about this, is it really brings down the cost because it takes everything about what you need in a solution and packages it into one thing. So that's one thing that kind of drives the cost seeming out of reach. That one piece there can bring it, much closer to something where you can build a business case quite easily. Second part of cost being out of reach is many times what we see when you start into a data analytics, a project or initiative, if you will, is there's excitement around it, and so then there's a whole lot of different things that get kind of piled in to say, we can do this, we can do that, we can do that. It's really best to just simplify it down and say, what is the one really important thing that drives our business, that drives revenue, that drives growth, and have those few things be really the focus of all the analytics when you get started. Get the value from that, and then use the platform you already paid for to get into other things. So that it gets to this term that we like to use is keep the K in KPI. So just find what's important, just build that, just focus on those things, keep it simple, and you'll find that it's much easier to control cost and to get to value very, very quickly. It's also, that ties kind of with, do we have the IT resources to even pull this off? And that's where, these newer sets of tools that we're seeing that are solutions, or software as a solution, meaning they're web-based, all of that infrastructure that you would need IT resources are now all just built into the license. So you don't need to concern your projects and your resources with those things, but rather that is just covered in the license, and it keeps the total cost of ownership down in there, because that doesn't include labor in there as well. It's a big component you need to look at when you're looking at putting things together. Is where do the resources come from? And do we have to have IT, or can it be business led? And there's one more thing I want to just talk about briefly about. If you have a solution that doesn't require a lot of IT resources, what it means is they're really driven by the business side, by the finance side, whoever's the focus of these data analytics. And if it's under the control and the design is under the control of the business, it means that they can experiment, and experimenting with data is key. So you can try something, and if you like it, build onto it. But you're not heavily invested in a cycle of, development and defining and building, and before you get to something where you can. So this experimenting is super helpful. Not sure where to begin. That's another one where it's just find the thing that's really key. We talked about spreadsheets, so there's. We just want to do a quick comparison between a SaaS solution, Domo, one that's we find very cost effective. One is speed of insights. So when you're in that period, how quickly can you get there? And with spreadsheets, getting data together, putting them in the right place, putting who has access to it, or having it automated, where you just a click of a button. Data management, pulling data in and keeping everything aligned correctly inside of a spreadsheet is challenging. When you automate that, you'll see a little later in this presentation, it just happens. It happens on a regular basis, near real time. On a spreadsheet, you can follow different formulas, but that's not really drilling in. It's where you have a number, a solution to chart, and be able to drill in and see the details that are behind the scenes and answer your analytical questions kind of on the spot. And then aligning the organization, what Casey was talking about earlier about have everybody looking at the same data. Yeah, so I think Casey, you wanted to just go through a little bit of this, get where you get data from.
Yeah. Thanks, Loren. I think great points on the spreadsheets. I'm guilty of that, where it's, hey, I'm using version 2.1 and we're on version 4. And again, that's when the discussion falls down, right? When we're not talking about the same set of data or the most up-to-date set of data. But again, talking about, utilizing Domo from a private equity perspective, it's the challenge of rolling up data from different businesses, which again have different ERPs or financial applications, different charts of accounts, whatever that may be. Again, and I'll cover this a little bit later, but Domo has that capability to take different disparate sets of data, roll those all up together, give you a complete set of data where you can then report and take action on. And this is what this slide is kind of getting at, where it's kind of the points that I've been talking about earlier, where that's the challenge of pulling data from different areas, getting it all together. And that's really the hidden cost of being data-driven, where if it's a manual process that I have to go to that source system or that application owner, request a report, and then do that 10 different times, I'm not a truly data-driven organization, even though I am using data to make decisions. The challenge is getting that data automated, those roll-ups automated, reducing costs, or reducing time, and hence costs, and then reducing errors as well, right? Again, getting that all automated into the hands of the people in the business, to the points, Loren, you brought up earlier, and really being data-driven and taking action as that data is being transacted and not at the end of the period, right? To that previous point that I made, take action within the period, make adjustments, and then rather than being surprised when that period ends and you do finally harvest all that data together. So, Loren, I'll pass it back to you to kick off how our clients are being more data-driven with Domo.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, so being data-driven is, we like to talk about this in terms of a high-performing organization. And so there's this model that we use that you probably have seen, and it just highlights the different components of when you're a high-performing organization, the common themes that we see. So, number one, that for high-performing organizations, they plan. They have a plan. It is one where everybody in leadership positions, management positions, they are putting together what is the overall strategic plan, and then what are the tactical things to execute on. So what are the few tactical things that would be key to staying on track with that plan? And then staying engaged with that plan, I guess it's number two in performing. And it's using the plan and adjusting the plan as the reality of the business environment around us, changes, and then looking at what is the performance, how does that vary from the plan, and then making adjustments to it. So what I just described there is, part of that triangle in the middle there, where while the plan has data in it that is feeding into the performance, having performance data come back in near real time, so you're within a decision-making window, so you can make decisions and drive important discussions amongst the leadership team about, what is the most valuable thing to do, at this point in time. So I guess just to number three, it's just taking the plan, the performance against that plan, letting that drive where the conversation is going with people. And then I guess it's a number four, that's all about communicating, which drives full circle. All of that needs to be driven by data. If it's driven by spreadsheets, it just has a major impact on timing. And timing with data is really where the value is at. you can say, data is data. However, the value of data has a shelf life. And if you stay very current, very relevant, keep the conversations going, keep it alive, that's where the value in this is. I think, Casey, you had some examples here.
Jump in here. So I think, kind of a common thing that I've been talking about throughout is just how do we pull all this data together from different systems. And, what I really like about the Domo platform is, it comes with a data warehouse and it comes with pre-built tools, data connectors to pull in data from different sources, right? I think there's other applications out there where you need your own data warehouse. You need a team to set that data warehouse up, build those connectors, do that back-end data engineering. With Domo, it's all in one. It's a visualization tool built on top of its own data warehouse. And the connectors I also really like because it makes it easy to pull in data from a number of different sources, whether that's your financial application, a standalone database, an Excel file that you've been marking up, an API. It has over 1,000 of these pre-built connectors to make the process to pulling in data really easy. And kind of the screen we're looking at here, the screenshot, is just kind of what I've been talking about, where we're pulling in. Here's an example of those red squares are 4 different data sources that we've pulled into this customer's Domo environment. And we're joining that data together to bring all in different data sources. And again, make it reportable, actionable, all within the Domo ecosystem, right? So it's got that pre-built process where you can pull in data from different sources, roll it up, and then again, make it reportable. And then moving on to the next slide, I really like this slide because it kind of outlines how we think about how we work with our clients on dashboarding and standing up Domo instances. And I think it's the strategic versus the tactical view, right? So it's the first one where this is our strategic view, and maybe it's revenue quarter over quarter for the year, or maybe it's gross margin. But it kind of gets back to what Loren was talking about earlier. It's like, have that strategic view and see how we're trending from a gross margin perspective or a revenue perspective. And then we're able to drill through if maybe we're trending lower than we'd like to. We're able to drill into that view, that revenue view, and then build on dashboards beneath those to see from a tactical perspective, why are we trending down? Why are we trending up? What is the data telling us, right? So again, it's kind of what is our strategy? What is our overall business goal? How do we look at that? And then if we need to adjust, how do we drill through those and look at data even deeper to get a more actionable perspective and then understand kind of what financial levers we need to pull, what do we need to do. And then to Loren's point earlier, I love this one. It's keep the K and KPI. What are those key KPIs for your organization, right? And start your data journey there. Don't try to pull in multiple sources that everything you can think of. Be very focused in kind of getting this project stood up. And then expand from there after you kind of nailed that strategic and tactical view for each of your KPIs. And again, just a couple more examples of what we've built here, but good look at just kind of a revenue forecast. Again, this is a good strategic view of how we've trended, this organization has trended from a revenue perspective, right? So I think you see those green lines there. Those are our actuals. And then what you see those blue lines that's kind of that forecasting data science, if you will. How are we projecting based on our past transactions, past months, right? And how closely think where the blue and the green overlap. That's where you can kind of see how accurate that forecast was, right? So it's going beyond just our historicals, but using those historicals to understand, based on what we've done, where do we think we're going to be 3 months, 6 months, a year from now? And then jumping ahead here, this is From working with our private equity team in Moss Adams, we've kind of built out this private equity solution where it's to get back to how can we roll up data from different sources, right? So it's a handful of different organizations, all different charts of accounts, but we want to get a holistic view of these companies within our portco. And here we can see that we kind of have 3 companies. This dashboard, it's flexible, right? So it shows us all the companies within the portco, but if we wanted to drill in, we could do that within that click there on the right-hand side of just looking at a specific company, right? But again, it's very strategic in what we're looking at. How have we done in the past? And is there a company within our portco that we need to, focus more on, right? So again, it's getting back to that rolling up data from different organizations, different charts of accounts, getting it all into a reportable, usable view that we can then take action on. Loren, I'll pass it back to you on just kind of to tie it up on how we're kind of increasing agility and reducing costs.
Yeah, and that this agility is, thank you for that. This is really kind of the key in, 1, controlling cost, and 2, getting value from your data. And, the one constant that we see out there constantly is that things change. And so with that, you really want to have a solution where when you build it, it is really built with change in mind. So you have the tactics that are important. Right now, you may have a KPI that's kind of important ongoing, but how you actually operate with that KPI or the tactics that you use to keep it on track can change. And you want to be able to have this data as close as you can to the decision maker, to operations, or to where you're really affecting what the direction of the business. And so with that, you'll want to have something where you do have that flexibility to change and flex over time. One of the key things of doing that is always just actively engaging with information users. So you really want that engagement. That's one thing that we do hear about, dashboards. There's a lot of things on it. They say, like, we put a lot out there, then initially there's a lot of interest, and then it all kind of, tapered off. And what we find when we look into those situations is there wasn't really an active discussion. It was put out, it was somewhat passive, and there wasn't ongoing discussion. And one thing that we do recommend is that you have at least weekly, what we call the 15-minute meeting. Pull people together, everybody can spare 15 minutes, just talk about, this is the data, what does it mean, have a conversation, and then do a hard stop. And if you have a regular cadence of always talking about the data and getting engagement, that's where you'll get value. That's where you build your business case. That will guarantee that you do need some agility to make that happen. There are very cost-effective solutions. We've been talking about Domo. It's a great example of what it means to be cost-effective. It just means that there are a lot of components to making a platform really work well. Having that kind of pre-built and within the cost of a single license is where you'll see the total cost of ownership will come down and allow you to take these steps of incrementally move into things without breaking the bank as you go. Here is just a quick list of when you're looking at what it takes to pull together a solution. There are a lot of different components. We talked about, getting data earlier, acquiring data or collecting data earlier in the conversation. But that's one piece of it. Then having it stored in a place where you can use it, security around that, so you can have your data and have a lot of people involved without having security issues around your data policies. Being able to have in that platform, process the analytics and do reports and dashboards. So this is the whole list, which you can see. There are turnkey solutions now that do this. So you don't have to build it. Instead, you just focus on the business and what's needed in the business. And then, Casey, I think you wanted to just go through a few slides here to kind of pull together.
Highlight a couple here. I think the first one here is be collaborative, right? And again, throughout this webinar, I've been talking about pulling data from different sources, getting everybody within the organization or within the firm talking about the same set of data, right? And again, Domo allows that to occur where Like I talked about the pre-built connectors, the data warehouse that's included in the platform. It's all there, right? And the other piece I want to talk about is empowering, right? Truly being a data-driven organization, getting data as it's transacted, not at the end of the month, at the end of the period, using the data as it hits your books or the sub company's books to then take action on. And then to conclude, I know we're running short, but I just want to focus on a couple things. Focus your time on analysis, not on the data creation, right? As I keep saying, but let's make sure we're really focused is find an automated solution to pull data from disparate systems into a more, accessible, reportable format. Keep the K and KPI. Loren, you talked about that. It's a great point. It's not, don't boil the ocean with your analytics projects. What are those KPIs? Start there, and then the platform and the stickiness will grow organically, right? And then that kind of ties in with that second point where it's immediate results with a scalable solution. Again, start small, then expand instead of trying to start large. That kind of brings us to the end of our presentation. More than happy to chat. Our contact information is here. Emily, I'll hand it back to you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Loren and Casey, for a great presentation today. We don't have time for questions. However, you may reach out directly to Loren or Casey using their contact information here. And here is a link to an online survey where you can provide feedback for today's presentation. Please take a moment to complete this survey as your feedback is very important to us. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you'll join us again next time.